Have you?
Thank you, Asmin. Thank you, Asmin, for the introduction. Firstly, thank you, Jodia and the team at DIFC for setting up the logistics and all the work that goes in the back end to set up an event like Mentor Mondays. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of those who've joined on behalf of DIFC and myself to people who have dialed into this event. It's a privilege and an honor to be sharing my views and inputs to the fintech startup world. My understanding is that this group consists of aspiring entrepreneurs, early startups, and also growth state startups. I'll try my best to address the different audiences as much as possible because I'm sure you'll have something to take away from there. Okay. Now, the agenda that I've set up for the next 30 to 40 minutes is a couple of things. One is to briefly introduce myself in terms of what's the expertise I can bring to you and to your firms as startups and aspiring startups. Then also provide my point of view on two areas which are very close to what I do. One around strategy and change, and one is around ecosystems. And we can have an open session towards the end of the main session where I'm sure you can have questions and answers. And during my session, you can always type in your questions in the chat window, which I'll pick up at the right time. Now, before I get into the details of my introduction and my point of view on strategy and change and ecosystems, firstly, thank you very much, entrepreneurs. You are the people who make the world go around and grease the whole world economy. You guys create employment, raise the social indicators, and create social inclusion. You create and manage your own destinies, and you can actually have power. You have the power to change the world, and you're instrumental in increasing the gross domestic produce of the world. So firstly, thank you very much for taking this line of activity. And you can be sure that whenever someone sees a business, someone had made a very courageous decision, just like all the courageous decision you have taken to be an entrepreneur. Now, moving on from that, a quick introduction to my side. Sheen Stanley. I have about 20 years of experience, largely in the fintech industry. Started off as a banker. I spent a lot of time within the leading global fintech firms. I've had the privilege to witness at very close quarters the shifting from antiquated spaghetti systems in the 90s to very modern modular core banking systems. And I've also been involved in the transition to digital capabilities and emerging new technologies. I strongly believe in doing good to do well, and this part of my mentorship is a part of that, to do good so that we can do well. Moving on to a little more details of what I do, as Yasmin mentioned earlier on, currently I'm the head of strategy and change at SimCorp. SimCorp is responsible for asset management solutions to global asset managers and investment firms. I spent about 10 years in the Middle East region. I've been involved in a lot of mark projects within the region. The examples would be the digital wallet of Payit, modernization of Al-Khaliji, for example, the corporate banking at First Abu Dhabi Bank, and several more within the region. So about 20 years of experience around this. So anything around knowledge services, partners, strategy and change is some subjects which are very close to me. Moving on to the two topics I mentioned earlier that I would cover, one is around strategy and change. Things I would like to cover is what are the opportunities that you can look as entrepreneurs within the shifting landscape of the financial sector and also the trends that we see in fintech. I like to provide you my view of the strategy and change that's happening around us. Now, strategy is a very commonly used word. Different people have different definitions to it. I have my own definition to what a strategy is. Now, the most easiest thing I believe after spending several years in the fintech world is to come to a strategy, to arrive at a strategy. You can have your brainstorm sessions, you can pay a consultant, you can arrive at a strategy. The essence of the whole strategy is to choosing what not to do. You would have a plethora of opportunities in front of you, but the whole idea is what is that you do not want to do. That's all about strategy. And from a corporate perspective, what are the outcomes that you look from a strategic document that you would have for your organization? You need to be able to figure out what are the key implications of the actions that you're doing. What's the long-term model that you have? The long-term model could be anywhere between 2 to 3 years. In the earlier years, the long-term model used to be 5 years. Now, I believe a 2 to 3 year can be considered as a long-term model for a small-scale organization. A strategy should be able to provide you an equity story and a capital market narrative. Most of you either into startup funding or either you're looking at Series A funding. So you need to have a very clear story on your capital market narratives. And as a part of your strategy, you should also look at what are the mergers and acquisitions that you can look at while you're driving that strategy forward. These are the key outcomes that you need to get from a strategy itself. A strategy is a very consciously developed plan, a play to outmaneuver your competition. It's actually a pattern of actions, whether intended or no, will provide you the outcomes that you're looking at. It's a mindset at which you work. That's what a definition of a strategy is. And if you look at the cycle of things that you need to look at when you devise your strategic programs, you need to look at diagnosis, conceiving, realizing, and identifying your strategy that you needed. As startups, I believe that most of you would have a prospector strategy rather than a defender strategy or a growth strategy. And a prospector strategy is the most ideal for startups like yourself. Now, to just tell a story of what a strategy could look like. Strategy is like walking in a forest. As you walk, you need to pay attention to the stones and every step you take. But at the same time, you should also look ahead and see where you're headed. So strategy is about creating the woods and trees, looking at the stones that are coming in way while you do not lose sight of something that's ahead of you. So that's all about strategy. Now that we spend a little time about strategy, I personally believe that execution eats strategy for breakfast. You can have the best strategy that is documented, but without execution, it is going to be aimless and the strategy is going to be useless. Now, if you look at the success rate of strategies around the world, it is incredibly low. The fail percentages of strategies range anywhere between 40 to 90%. So let's say at an average, 50% of all strategies fail. And even with, we've been seeing improvements in the last few years, but this high percentage of failure is not satisfying at all, which actually means if you're looking at 50% of strategies fail, what does that convert to? It actually means that the half of the strategies are not executed properly. Now, what are the key reasons that these strategies fail? We can have a long plethora of list of reasons why strategies fail. The primary reasons could be unclear strategy could be one, responsibility is not being very clear, a lack of performance information, siloed behaviors, no optimization. It could also be, it can be you run out of your budgets. It could be because of insufficient or it could be inadequately resourced. So the list of reasons are very high. Now, what are the three reasons I personally think a strategy can work? Firstly, the strategy should be designed for humans. That is both for your customer and for within the organization. It needs to be designed for humans. That's the first principle I believe is what would help in a strategy. Then you need to figure out how humans learn. Each organization that you would have will have a different set of people who would learn in a different way. They should be able to hear it, believe it, and live that change. That's the only way how strategy is going to be implemented. The third thing which I think is important to make sure execution of the strategy happens is in terms of getting humans invested. If you have 100 people in your organization, 20 people would be very excited of any change that's going to happen. 20% would not be happy about any change that happens. Even if you change the parking lot, they wouldn't be happy about it. The most important people that you need to address is the 60% in between. If you can get the 60% in between to swing towards understanding, behaving, and living the change, your strategy is more likely to be executed than not. The same applies for customers. Any product that you bring to the market, 20% of the people would be excited about it. 20% would not be excited. The whole challenge is how to get the remaining 60% to get onto your side. So this is my general belief in terms of what a strategy is, what are the drivers of why execution I believe is more important than strategy. As the saying goes, without strategy, execution is aimless. Without execution, strategy is useless. So that's something which I want to leave you with. Now that we've dealt with what is strategy, What are the things that go to make it successful? Let's look at a few of the changes that's happening in the industry that we all belong to. That is the fintech or the industry landscape that we have. Now, if you put a looking glass forward for 5 years, what are the things that's changing in the banking industry? Now, while there are several changes that's happening in the industry, you can easily Google it out. The lists are anywhere between 10 to 20 things that are changing. I picked out 4 things which are changing and where you as entrepreneurs could have opportunities because of these changes that is happening. The industry as such is radically moving, arguably rapidly than most of the other industries that are there. And one of the most important thing is the emergence of fintechs. It is actually leading to changing business models. There are mounting regulations and compliance to do, and there are disruptive technologies. These would be the 4 or 5 things which are actually changing. Now, statistics say that $4.7 trillion in annual revenue, which was enjoyed by banks, will be moving from traditional services companies to fintechs. That's a huge amount of revenue we're looking at moving away from traditional revenues of banks to fintech. So this is the size of opportunity as startups and fintechs that you're looking at. We're looking at a $4.7 trillion of revenue moving from banks to fintechs. Technology is heart and core of all those things. So quickly going through the bits and pieces that I have put up in terms of what are the uh, 4 things that we have. Profitability. Now, I'm sure you would have seen banks used to have huge fee-based incomes that have generally come down. And that's number one. Technology, there are a lot of changes in technology, as I mentioned earlier. From the antiquated systems, things have moved towards componentized core banking systems. Now the journey is going forward towards blockchain and AI. About 4 or 5 years back, blockchains and AI and tokenization were just buzzwords. But today they're actually proof of concepts. They're actually making a revenue for these banks. Now, you don't need to be extremely large or big to look at this 4.7 trillion revenue that is there. All startups have started very small. Among these 4 changes that are happening, there are several changes that you can be a part of. I'd like to tell you a small story about the hyper customizations that I've been personally encountered with. Last week, I went into Dubai Mall. Just as I was entering Dubai Mall, I got an SMS sending me a message to buy Lego. At first, I thought it was an SMS for everybody in the vicinity of Dubai Mall. Then it actually dawned on me that a week ago, I had actually checked for some Lego toys for my daughter's birthday. And it didn't stop there. I got a message. I checked something online, very targeted. A message came to me, go buy Lego on the second floor on Dubai Mall. Now, it didn't stop there. A fintech actually sent me a message, sending a message saying that buy now, pay later. And it was offer from my credit card. That's situational hyper personalization at work. And this is going to get increasingly sharper and precise as we go forward. Now, we are all accustomed to mass usage, but my belief is that hyper personalization is something. There's a huge play for fintechs like you, startups like you, which you can play a role. You don't need to be extremely large. You can look at a niche field that you can look at, and that's an area which you can look at your investments and money in. Now let's look at some changes that's happening within our industry itself. Okay. The first change I believe is on the whole thing around ecosystem. Ecosystem is very close to my heart. I'll cover that as a separate topic in itself because it's a large topic in itself. The second major change, which opens a lot of opportunities to you, is migration to cloud. I'm not even suggesting for a minute that we need to become a large organization like the Microsoft Azure or the Google or AWS or IBM's. They are the hyperscalers who provide migration to cloud. Now, these organizations now provide secure, compliant, resilient infrastructure where banks can host their core banking systems. 54% of banks today use some sort of cloud for their core banking systems. As fintechs, you have an opportunity to launch applications on SaaS. That's very cost effective. It's distributable across the world, and that's an area which I believe that that's something which you can all work on, having SaaS applications. The next major change that's happening in our industry is all around tokenization. This is your distributed general ledger, whether it is blockchain or whether it is distributed currency. Now, I've been a part of the industry where for the last 5, 6 years, we've heard let me use the word noise around general ledger, blockchain, and digital money. But I believe in the last year or so, these are started becoming real. We actually seen it. I'm sure most of you all have heard about the organization called WeTrade, which is actually a blockchain distributed trade financing system. It's a consortium of HSBC and Hyperlink. They've actually been able to move 50 million euro in trade over a blockchain trade function. That's still it's a fraction of the entire trade finance that happens, but that's a real example of how blockchain is able to generate revenue. And also last year, you'd have seen that 7 central banks have approved digital currencies in their own respective markets. So there is a regulatory framework available. There is something that is changing. So it is more regularized now. So it is no longer something in the dark web that's happening. This is coming into mainstream. Okay. The next one is about hyper personalization. I covered that in the earlier deck in terms of earlier slide in terms of why hyper personalization is important and how it's going to influence the world. But the next big change that's going to happen is also in terms of the fintech might gradually turn into a tech fin. What I mean by that is technology would be square and center of everything financials, and technology would be the prime differentiator in terms of providing financial services. Now you have big data coming in, and more and the last statistics show that 70% of big data projects fail. But it's a question of time, and increasingly these big data projects will be successful and they will reach their outcomes. So three big things happening in our industry. One is big data, cloud, and tokenization. Now, in big data, you can have your own offerings in terms of analyticals. You can have dashboards, which will help both business to business consumers as well as business to B2Bs and B2Cs consume some products from you. That's one change. Number two, in terms of cloud, banks are increasingly okay to use cloud. You can have products in SaaS. It does not call for high investments. It's all about an idea, and you can have something on cloud. And the third one is around tokenization. As I mentioned in the trade finance example, you can have a space, you can carve out a space for yourself, which uses tokenization as its preference. See, these are the trends which I personally see in both the banking industry and the fintech industry. Now, coming to me personally, where can I help you in these things? If you are looking for a product market fit, and as you all know, product market fit is key and core to any startup and is the essence of startup. Without a product market fit, things are not going to work very well. That's the first important thing. Then I can offer you mentorship to help you make your strategic choices. I'm sure you know your strategy, you know what you're looking for in 3 years or 4 years from now. I can help you define, refine your choices and validate the choice that you've had. But that's something that's more important, as I mentioned earlier. You can have your best strategies, but how do you execute it? And that's the most important thing that happens around any strategy. So I can help you lay down roadmaps and execution plans for execution on these strategic choices. And as I mentioned, strategy is about options that you don't want to do. And more importantly, I can connect you with people, resources who can help you execute these choices. So that's what I can help you with around strategy and change if you're embarking either as an aspiring entrepreneur, either as a startup, as an early startup, or a growth stage startup. So with that, let me go to the next topic, which is very close to me, which is around ecosystems. I spent close to about 3 or 4 years building ecosystems for the world's largest fintechs. So I believe ecosystems is a place which is absolutely vital for you to grow. You would not be able to grow on your own unless you connect with an ecosystem. So what is an ecosystem all about? Let me get you an analogy. I'm sure you've gone to deep sea diving. Ecosystem is nothing but something that we all took out a word from marine life. You have a combination of salt water, you have your corals, you have your fish, you have your reefs. All these together create a very thriving environment for everybody to grow. So that's the whole thing about an ecosystem. It helps you, it helps everybody else, it helps the market to thrive and to grow. Okay. So with that, I'll cover a few topics around ecosystem, the direction in which ecosystems are going towards, and of course, end it with how I can help you build your ecosystems. Now, uh, business models are constantly evolving. Three-fourths of the CEOs, and not only in banks or fintechs, believe that their business model would change in 5 years from now, and ecosystem would be the main change agent. I'm sure you've seen things around you where ecosystems, the most popular example is your Apple iOS with its thousands of apps on it, your Amazon with hundreds of sellers on it, Netflix with thousands of movies on this. These are all nothing but an example or the best examples of how an ecosystem will thrive. I do not believe for a minute that we can be successful as an organization without an ecosystem of partners around us. Ecosystems will ensure that your capital market stories, your funding stories are well orchestrated when you have an ecosystem. The fact also remains that 75% of world trade flows through indirect channels. So if you are a producer of a good or a provider of service, 75% of that is expected to come through partners and indirect channels. So that's a reality that you need to check with. You can have hundreds of salesmen, you can have hundreds of market positioning done, but the fact remains that 75% of world trade flows through channels which are not yours, even if you own the product or own the service. And a good three-fourths of the CEOs globally also think that half of the revenue would come from partners or ecosystems. While you're deciding on ecosystems, what's the most important thing that you need to be aware of? It's something that I call the trading currency. You need to know what is your trading currency with a partner. What is that you have with you that you can trade to get something in return? For example, you might have a good product or you might have a platform. What is that you're providing to somebody as a partner? What is that he giving in return to you? It need not be in cash. It could be any sort of trading currency. It could be a barter. It could be a value addition. It could be an end-to-end value proposition to the client. It could be anything. That identifying your trading currency is what's important. And new trading currencies are evolving as we speak. In the erstwhile world, or probably 10 years ago, the only trading currency was a commission or a payout. Today, the trading currency is no longer a commission or a payout. There are several trading currencies which are emerging between partners. Okay. So moving on to the next slide, just to give you a glimpse of what are the various types of partners you have. You can have various types of ecosystems. You can have ISVs, you can distribution, you'll have joint implementation, you'll have analyst. So the picture I put on the top is actually you in the center. If you look at all around you, you have so many players around you who can help you reach your objectives. Okay. So I have isolated about 5 main ecosystem plays which are predominantly used by any fintech product organization to achieve their outputs. So number one, which I believe is the most common, is distribution and co-sell. You have a particular product, there is no way you can reach with your limited organization, either for language purposes or for cultural purposes. You cannot reach, let's say, for example, into Nigeria, Tanzania, Philippines, or to Spain. You will need to have a distribution and a co-sell network. This is one of the most simple networks to put in to have distribution of your product as is, where he gets a certain buyout. The advantage of this is you will be able to reach places where you can't reach because of geographical distances, culture, languages, regulatory compliances, so on and so forth. So that's one pillar that you need to look at. The next one is channel play. Channel play is where you have a product. The product in itself does not have an end-to-end completion of the client requirement. So you get in a joint venture, or you come together with somebody else to have a joint channel play. So this is something that you offer a value proposition to your end customer, where you two together come together to have a play. The most common examples I can quote from here is you have applications, core banking applications would actually partner with your cloud applications or cloud vendors to provide a joint value proposition. So that's, you can also look at uh, uh, working with other fintechs or with other banks to create value propositions which make sense to the market. The third most important thing, which is the third pillar or the third type of ecosystem play, which I've seen significantly grow over the last, let's say about 10 to 8 to 10 years, is open platform. One vendor wouldn't be able to provide the end-to-end functionality which a financial institution or a client needs. So I'm sure you've heard about platforms where you have open APIs, you can connect onto the platform, provide your functionality. So either you can be a platform, which I believe for a startup would be very ambitious, or you can be a participant in a platform. There are several platforms available as we speak in the market, which cater to very distinct requirements within the market. Now, in terms of innovation, you might have limitations in terms of innovating at scale. So you can have labs being set up. You can have your innovation centers with third-party fintechs that you can innovate, so that you have value propositions. You actually find new solutions to solve market needs. The last one, which I picked out in terms of the essential pillar of market play, could be services. You have a product, you would need people to actually run the service for you, service it, manage it, maintain it, provide services for it, and more also. Projects are no longer simple, they're very complex. You might need multidisciplinary execution skills to actually implement something. So these are the different types of ecosystem plays which usually the large fintech companies plays in. But it is up to you to decide what makes best sense for you. The point I'm trying to emphasize is that uh, without an ecosystem, you wouldn't be able to thrive or expand your reach the way you would want to. Yeah, you will have to very quickly claim your role within the ecosystem. You have to scan the whole landscape in terms of who are the different players, what do they do, and how can you partner with them. Yeah, and you need to choose what makes the best sense for you. Yeah, it could be distribution, co-sell, open banking, it could be joint products or innovation. Figure out what works best for you and claim your role around it. The next most important thing is that you need to pick your partners very, very wisely. The one constraint as startups you have is time and resources. If you do the right partnership, it's going to be a multiplier of your FX, because 1 plus 1 is not 2, but it's a multiplier effect. However, a wrong one would set you back and will set you back badly in terms of branding, in terms of investment of your time. So spend your time to pick your partners wisely. And if it doesn't work for you, be professional and move away from the partnership and explore new partnerships. Once you have claimed your role and you picked your partners, you need to orchestrate the ecosystem. And this is where your trading currency comes into place. What is that you have with you that you can trade for somebody else to give something in exchange? So this is where you need to orchestrate the ecosystem. So, uh, so you have to claim your role, pick your partners, identify your trading currencies, and orchestrate the ecosystem. Now let's look at some of the startups which have been extremely successful in the ecosystem. I'm sure most of you have heard about Revolut. Revolut is your forex exchange company based in the UK. Uh, Started up, they no banks wanted to partner with them because all the banks felt they will lose out on their forex charges. Revolut partnered with Currency Crowd, able to get able to get the right rates, and now and it's a growing organization, and consumers have benefited by at least reducing 30 to 40 euros of each transaction. The other example could be OneDeck and JP Morgan. OneDeck started as providing small line of credit, tied up with JP Morgan, and a very successful partnership at it. And the other examples could be Mambu and N26. N26, as you know, is a small mobile bank. And then you have Mambu, which provides core banking solutions. They both now offer white label core banking solutions in Europe. So these are some examples of how startups have partners with different types of players existing in the ecosystem to bring their products to market. Now, if you look at UA itself, now that we spoke about strategy, we spoke about what are the changes that's happening in the ecosystem, we spoke about what are the drivers that's happening in the fintech space, we spoke about what are the different types of ecosystem plays and where you need to play. Now, if you zoom down onto UAE, if you scan the landscape around us, what are the 2, 3 things I feel are things where there are significant opportunities? One is, of course, a remittance market. UAE is a land of expats, probably upward of 80%, and every single month there has to be a remittance made back home. Now, that's an area which can have significant improvements. We have all the streets lined up with money exchangers. We have banks who provide rates, but I'm still sure the causes of friction, it can be the inefficiencies can be removed, and we can have a startup playing a significant role within that whole space. The next one could be around subscription. I'm very sure everybody in UAE has at least 3 or 4 subscriptions. One could be with Amazon, one could be with Talabat, subscription with the Netflix, several subscriptions of various library subscriptions, etc., etc. Maybe there's an opportunity to consolidate all the subscriptions into one place and have some sort of a payment gateway. So these were the few opportunities I could think of once Yashmin and Jodia came and told that we need to speak to all the startups. So these could be the areas where you can look at as startups. Now, what is the help I can do within the ecosystem? Yeah. I'm sure you're scanning your ecosystem, you know who they are. I can help you validate the ecosystem plays for you and help you claim your roles within that. I can probably help you also with the ecosystem partners who would suit you best. Then most importantly, I can connect you with ecosystem players in EMEA, whether it is sales and distribution, whether it is innovation, whether it is open platforms. If you're looking for some connects around the ecosystem players, I'm happy to mentor you and take you through the journey around that. Now, I'm very sure I'm assuming that most of you are millennials and you understand the internet much more than probably I do. Some of the resources that can help you in your journey. Now, if you go to the Airtable site, there is a list of resources that you can use to help you aid in your journey. It talks about what are the top fintechs, how to create your pitch deck for investors, what could be your strategic journey. It's sort of a library of content that's available. I'm very sure you have other but I have, when I did my reading, I felt this was arguably the a well curated place in terms of where you can get enough content for uh, content around startups and especially around on fintechs. So it's the Airtable site, and also there's a site called as Startup List, which you can use for this. Okay. So as I come towards the end of my presentation, I would like to leave you with a few thoughts. Okay. Now, as startups, you have so many competing priorities, right? In terms of what's a product market fit, what's the strategy that you need to, what's the hiring that you need to do. There's so many competing priorities that you need to deal with as a CEO or as a startup of your organization, albeit with limited resources, limited skill, limited funding. My view is that you need to pursue progress and not perfection. And all this progress will take place outside the comfort zone. So fail fast, learn fast would be what I think is essential for a startup. Now, when I try to link up strategy and execution, one thing that comes to my mind is that if you are thinking about it, somebody else is also thinking about the same thing. Strategy is not unique, ideas are not unique. Somebody is thinking about it. So the only thing that is going to differentiate you with somebody else is your pursuit to progress and your pursuit to execute. So this is what I wanted to leave you with. So summing up a few things we spoke about, in case you're looking at some mentorship around strategy, validating your choices, helping you build an execution plan, linking you with the people who can execute. That's one side of what I can help you with. Number two, in terms of ecosystems, if you're looking at, I can help you claim your place in the ecosystem, help you connect you with the ecosystem players so that you can thrive in your journey as a startup. So you have my contact details over here in terms of details out over here. Now, I'm not so sure how we take questions.
Accelerator partner that connects us to 5 major players, a bank, a service provider for banks, etc. They're very old in market and relevant. How is the best approach to connect with them in a very traditional finance market?
So did he mention Ecuador as a country where he's based?
Brazil.
Brazil. Unfortunately, I do not have exposure in the LATAM part of the world, but the principles could be the same, is my assumption. Please drop in a note in terms of what you want to have, and I'm allocating the Saturdays of every week to look at mentorships. I also mentor at micromentor.com. So I spend these Saturdays around this. So please do drop into me, and I'm happy to help you out on that.
Okay, then we have Andre says, if someone new to the country with experience in financial services is aiming at starting a fintech, what would you advise in terms of getting to know the ecosystem better here, building a network and start building the company?
And financial services aiming at starting a fintech in terms, okay, as I mentioned, the most important thing is the product market fit. Without a product market fit, we might spend a lot of time and effort around it, but getting your product market fit is core to it. Then things around it can work. So identifying what is that product that you have and where does it fit in. So if you look at the UAE market in general, these are the two things which I thought you could have a fit. We spoke about the various changings that's buffeting the industry. So anywhere within that, if you have a fit, and if it's a product market fit, the market will be ready to consume that.
Okay, we have a question on the side in the chat. It says, this is from Karthik. This is Karthik from AKCB team. Considering fintech evolving at a super fast rate, what would be your advice to upscale the consultant knowledge?
That's a very good one. I spent about 15 years in the professional services industry. So once you learn something, tomorrow morning, the next new shiny thing comes up. So you're always playing the catch-up game. The good news is that over the last few years, learning, education, and knowledge is become democratized. It's no longer sitting in some place where you need to attend physically or in a classroom. There are several resources available where you can upskill and up-tune yourself. So if you look at what are the trends that the industry is looking at, one is around cloud, one is around tokenization, and one is around hyper personalization. So if you're interested to get into this whole business of fintech, I would think that these are the areas that you need to look at investing your time. It was wonderful spending the last 45 minutes with you. I hope you found it useful. And again, thank you, entrepreneurs. You are the guys who will increase the GDP of the world and make the world go around. Thank you again for your time. I left my contact details over here and more than happy to share my time with you. Thank you, Asmin, and thank you, Jodia, for organizing the event.